like I forgot to do this, but in the Arkansas game for Texas, that game was over when it's 52-23. Like
Yeah.
Texas emptied the bench. Sark even said
I
that. So I don't know how many like garbage yards they put up at the end of that game. I guess, I mean, Jackson threw for a bunch of yards in the fourth quarter. So probably 150 of those were just pure Texas was willing to give them up. So, I mean, I'm not saying they played great in that game, but Arkansas scored 30 points on everyone not named LSU or Notre Dame. So, I mean, their offenses, I've never seen it. I said this last night. I've never seen a team to where they just had an average defense. That team's probably an 8 or 9 win football team.
Which is crazy because we had an Arkansas guy on our show who we were talking about that, like who deserves the job. I was like, give it to Bobby Petrino. Like, give it to Petrino. He's paid his dues. He's coached at crappy places. He's taken these OC jobs. He had to work under Jimbo Fisher, for God's sakes. Like, he's been punished enough. So it's like, just give him that opportunity. He'll build a good staff, and he just needs to fix the damn defense. And Arkansas is going to be a fun team to watch. It is disappointing because it would help Texas A&M and Texas, strength of schedule if Arkansas was a good team, if they were a decent team. But because they're a 2-win team and you have these games, everybody's going to look back at them, which they're doing with A&M still, of, well, you won 45-42. Well, you only won 52-37. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You just have to get out because Taylor Green is a special player. They got a lot of physical wide receivers. They got a physical run game. They always have a pretty decent offensive line. They've just had a crap-ass defense that's never gotten better. It's never been really consistent at all under any regime. So it is one of those things where I don't look at that game for Texas and go into this week so confident that A&M's just going to go in there and control the game and not turn the ball over. And it makes zero sense because we're going to get into the history of this rivalry. Going back, so I kind of revealed my age. I'm 31, so I've been watching this rivalry for a very long time, and this is the most meaningful game. It's kind of crazy because for the first 2 years, back to back, these have been meaningful games for both programs, which is nuts because I look back, I think it's the late aughts. It's like 2000. It was when Stephen McGee was at quarterback, and I know they beat A&M. I think it was like 13-0, or Texas. A&M beat Texas 13-0 one of those games, and I think they beat them the year after. But and I believe Texas was a top 25, maybe top 15 ranked team at that time. But at the same time, like, it didn't mean anything. Like, it really didn't. It was just a rivalry game. It was just for pride for A&M. But honestly, everything is on the line for both programs in this game. I mean, A&M, they win this, they're going to the SEC championship for the first time in program history. They'll finish 12-0 for, I believe it's the first time in program history, based on some of the things that happened in the 90s. And for Texas, again, like, if they can win this game, and they can hope that Alabama loses, maybe Georgia trips up against Georgia Tech. Like, we just never know that could easily happen, especially after Georgia Tech lost the way they did last weekend. Texas could be in the conversation. Like, there's so much meaning here. This is not one of those games where Texas is just going to enter talking about pride. You heard Sarkisian this week. Like, he's not ready to talk about the offseason or a pointless bowl game. He says, look, you go into these weeks because anything can happen. We have no idea. College football is crazy. That's why we all love it. And we've seen in rivalry games in the past, like, even the worst team can pull off the upset because they have true hatred for one another. So, yeah, it's crazy. I got to ask, like, what's your earliest memory of this rivalry? Because mine, I have to think back. Like, it's probably the one I really remember is probably Stephen McGee's game. I think it was 2009. Where they beat them. But that's really my earliest. But I do remember, like, the Gerard Johnson game where they almost came back. I think they scored like 39 points in that game. There's a lot of weird ones, especially during the Colt McCoy days. But what's your earliest memory of this rivalry?
My earliest one is probably the 05 game because Vince Young gave that speech like before the game, and A&M's crowd is going crazy above top, and they go out and win that game, and obviously we know what that team goes on to do. And then obviously Case McCoy winning. I mean, it's crazy that you look back and Case McCoy beats A&M and Oklahoma both times. He probably shouldn't have won either game, but he did. That dude, by the way, he's not talented at all, honestly, but he's a gamer. Like, he's a tough guy. Like, he got beat up a crap ton with those Texas teams, but beat the rivals when you needed him to beat them. So he did his job, and it's just funny looking back at him being able to beat the two biggest rivals Texas has.
Being that I am 31 years old, I do remember that game. My dad actually went to the bonfire game when A&M won, which was obviously one of the more passionate wins in A&M history. But yeah, the 2010, the last one in DKR, Cyrus Gray running for that freaking long time. I mean, one of the most underutilized running backs in Texas A&M history. I was talking to my co-host about that. I'm still mad about it. I'm like, they didn't even use him correctly. He could have had a long NFL career, he just had injuries. But I mean, one of the fastest players they've ever had. Ryan Tannehill, that story going into that season was just kind of crazy, being a wide receiver turned to a quarterback. Just a lot. But again, it's just funny because A&M never crossed the threshold of being a contender in any of those years. Like because after when the Johnny Manziel years, this rivalry was gone. It was dead. I mean, we didn't even know he was going to come back until the rumors came with Texas joining the SEC. So, and to be honest, what's crazy too is even going into next year, this game could potentially matter like this again. It could have this type of meaning based on both teams' schedules. And I mean, we're not going to talk about it yet because we have a lot going on after this. We're not going to go into offseason yet, but it's good. It's just good for the brand. It's good for the SEC. It's good for college football because it is true that it's weird for Aggie fans to be here right now. They haven't been 11-0 since 1992. I mean, a lot of Aggie fans weren't even born yet. And it's just a weird situation because usually, and especially going to last year, you're fighting for your lives. Like they were 8-3 going into this game. They were not playing well. They had lost a really close 4 overtime game to Auburn in a game where actually Theo Malin Ostrom dropped a pass that really ended the game, resulted in that loss, and just didn't have the confidence, didn't have the team that they have now. The culture wasn't built yet. It wasn't where it's at now. Mike Elko was right to say that, and to be honest, I give complete credit to Steve Sarkisian through all the rumor mills and everything going on, even some of the fan base trashing him and not backing him. He's kept this team playing competitive football coming up to this point. So I give him complete kudos there because the reason Mike Elko is not getting any flack is because they're undefeated. But I'll tell you this, as someone who covers this team professionally and has for the past 4 seasons, going into the 24 offseason, we didn't know if Mike Elko would be the long-term solution. There was a lot of disdain for the way they finished, losing to Texas in a game which they had chances to score touchdowns, couldn't even sniff the end zone in that game, where Quinn Ewers was basically giving the game away on a silver platter. Yeah. They couldn't take advantage of it. Texas ended up having a pretty good run in the CFP while they're playing in the Las Vegas Bowl and end their season against a Jordan Maeva, whatever his name is, for USC, their quarterback, who wasn't even the starter then. He was like a third stringer at that point, and he ended their season with a comeback fourth quarter, just shredding A&M secondary. And going into the offseason, there was zero hope going to this program. I talk about it all the time. So it's just insane that we're where we're at right now. But I'll say this, I love where things are lining up for this game. I haven't been more excited for the Lone Star Showdown in years. I mean, going back last year, I did not pick A&M to win that game. I was actually shocked they even scored in that game, to be honest with you. But this is going to be very, very exciting. So we will get to the prediction portion right now. And like I said yesterday, I think I said like 28-24. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I think this is going to be the best defense we see from Texas all season. I think they're going to show up. I think that guys like Colin Simmons, who obviously we talked about briefly, is going to potentially be a game wrecker if they kind of move him around. I don't think he's going to have like success against Trey Zune. He's been one of the best pass blockers, probably I think the best pass blocker per PFF this season. But Armaj Reed Adams, who actually spoke today, called you guys cowards for
I saw that.
for celebrating in the middle of the field, which that's his opinion. He did give up 6 sacks against Notre Dame, or 6 pressures. Against 6 sacks, 6 pressures against Notre Dame. So he has struggled in some areas, especially against elite talent. If they move him around and they can get pressure early and get Marcel Reed off kilter and just get in his head, that's the thing. You get into Marcel Reed's head early, you can cause a lot of mistakes and you can end up taking advantage of those, especially the way Arch Manning is playing. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. I'm still going to pick A&M to win this game just because I do believe they have a lot of momentum in their favor. I think that Texas maybe because of how important this game is, where, especially I'll say this, if some dominoes drop and actually I shouldn't say that because there's no games on Friday. Yeah, I need to backtrack that. There's no games on Friday that have
two other games. Two or three. So the only game of importance, like the Texas, two actually, Texas playoff hopes. Ole Miss and Mississippi State play. Mississippi State beats Ole Miss. I think you can make a case too because Ole Miss doesn't have many great wins. Maybe you put them in there, especially with the Lane Kiffin stuff going on. Like if he leaves, I think you should take that into consideration. And then I do believe Utah and Kansas play that night too. So that is kind of, in
the playoff. I am right. Yeah, I did think one of those two. Yeah, I just knew I knew Alabama. I know that game is on Saturday. Yeah, I know most of them are on Saturday. So yeah, if two dominoes drop, if those two teams lose, and that is going to obviously have a great effect on their playoff chances, maybe that gets in their head. Maybe they're thinking ahead. Maybe they're thinking, well, maybe we do have a shot. And we do know that if you're not playing free and you're not playing focused on the game at hand, you're looking ahead, which has been a thing that we've talked about all season with A&M when they were playing South Carolina the way they did. We thought we were looking ahead to Texas. Maybe they were, but it can really disrupt any of your consistency. And it's really going to be a game, I think, that we're going to judge Arch Manning even more because this is the brightest of lights. This is against an 11-0 team. This is against a Texas A&M defense that has been praised all season. I do think that it's fair to say that they've been overrated in some aspects because of the opponents they played and some of the offenses they played. But at the same time, you just got to throw everything out the window with this one. I just think it's just going to be a ugly, physical game. There might be a couple fights in the middle. I can totally see that. I think these teams really hate each other, especially this current roster. But I'm going to lower my score. I'm going to say 24-20 A&M. I just think it's going to be a grinded out. I think they're going to maybe get a couple big runs to seal it at the end. I'll say this though, if they have to rely on field goals in this game, I pick Texas to win that game. Their field goal issues right now are really bad. Randy Bond, their senior, did not even attempt a field goal against Stanford. Jared Zirkle, who's a Georgia transfer, he went 2 for 3, missed a chippy, and hit a 39, I think like a 28-yarder. So, and if you ask Mike Elko right now, he'll probably ignore that question. He does not want to talk about it. He's hoping that his offense can just score touchdowns and not have to rely on the kicking game. But that's not a problem with Texas. So.
Yeah, Mason Shipley's been pretty good, basically 45 yards and in. He's been fine. It's anything above that, I think there's some questions there. But, yeah, I picked Texas to win 29-26. I think it's just going to be a really fun, competitive game that's going to be within one score either way. Arch Manning, if they didn't have the drops in the Georgia game, this could be the game where he's going for his 5th game of over 300 yards in a row. I think he's really turned a corner. He's played very well. That's my biggest issue is the drops. We just got to stop dropping the football. I mean, we had 5 or 6 versus Georgia, one of them to Ryan Wingo on the first drive, where if he catches the ball, that's a first down. Texas probably goes in and scores on the opening drive, probably change the game a little bit. I still think Georgia wins the football game, but I mean, that's his issue. It's so weird to me. He makes what play or later in that game where he's extending all the way up in between 2 defenders and brings it down, makes a couple plays versus Arkansas, doesn't drop any pass in the Arkansas game. So he's put together his best 6 quarters of football at Texas. Emmett Mosley, in my opinion, is the most underrated wide receiver on our team. I think he does everything well. I think he's a really good player, and we're going to have him for a couple more years because he transferred after his freshman season from Stanford. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see what he looks like in this game and going forward. And then Parker Livingston is kind of, he's been a roller coaster because he opened the season really, really well. I think 2 to 3 games, he had 4 or 5 touchdowns. Then it's kind of gone downhill. And then you see the last couple of games start to go up again. So it's going to be interesting. DeAndre Moore, honestly, has been kind of a non-factor. Other than the game versus Arkansas, he had 1 touchdown the whole year. Be interesting if he's starting to come on. But it's going to be on Arch Manning. And, Brooks Austin, the Film Guy Network, I think does a great job. And he's talked about, in his opinion, over his 4 years, Gunnar Stockton, Riley Leonard, and Arch Manning are the 3 toughest quarterbacks he's watched film on. And I agree. Arch is tough, man. He gets his ass kicked behind a really, average offensive line, and he gets back up. He's willing to take hits. He likes taking hits a lot. Mm-hmm. He talks about that. That gets him into rhythm. The first couple hits he takes, it gets him fired up. So we're lucky we have this offensive line with Arch Manning and not this offensive line with Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers would have died behind this offensive line. So
that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think we do win this game, but I think it's going to be a really, really good football game.
I think it's a coin flip. I honestly agree with you. That's the thing. We're releasing our predictions on Thursday morning, but I'm kind of going back and forth, and after really looking at all the situations that could happen and where A&M has struggled, especially against big plays. I think I have to look it up, but I think let's get this stat here. But yeah, it's explosive plays. So it's kind of interesting when you look at when you compare statistics side by side. A&M actually they're ranked 79th in explosive plays on defense allowed. So they've had an issue there. It hasn't been game changing to the point where it's ruined any game. And obviously they're 11-0, so it hasn't resulted in a loss. A&M, Texas a little better. I think they're ranked 66, so it's not perfect, but they're in that same ballpark. Third down is going to be huge in this game. It's going to be massive in this game. Texas A&M's third down defense is that's as good as I've seen. Going back to the 21 season when Elko was A&M's defensive coordinator, Bryce Young during that Alabama game. I mean, that was a master class in defensive coaching. I mean, they caused that kid so many problems. I mean, it was chaotic. I mean, they were sending blitzers left and right from areas. Like, I had to watch the film. I was like, what kind of defense? I don't even know what this defense is. And they had a long article about him. Like, it's like an NFL scheme that's not used a lot because you have to have certain type of athletes in it. So he's a mastermind in that area. And that's really what's going to determine this game, I think, because Arch has not been good, and correct me if I'm wrong, he hasn't been great under pressure at all. Like, he's not one of those quarterbacks that really completes a high percentage of his passes under pressure.
He's good when he's blitzed, but he's not good if you're getting home with 4. No.
When
he knows the blitz is coming, he's pretty good though.
He's pretty good against the blitz, yeah. So which is good. He can learn from Dak Prescott in that. Obviously, I think you just watch Dak Prescott's film. How those guys do that is just insane. I mean, you have to know your read and you have to trust your offense. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if this is going to be squarely on the feet of Arch Manning and Marcel Reed to win this game. Like I said, if A&M can find their run game, which is going to be tough. Obviously, Texas is going to try to stop the run early because Colin Klein, I can tell you the first play is going to be a run. It's probably going to be a stretch run, or they're going to try to set up some zone look. But if it's going to fall on Marcel Reed to make plays, I think you're going to see a lot of runs and you're going to see him exploiting holes immediately. I think they're going to tell him, go, just take it. I was watching the NFL last night. Bryce Young, I mean, that's kind of funny we're bringing him up. Again, he's rolling out. He's got a lineman right in front of him, and he chooses to throw it, turning into an interception where all he has to say is go, go, go. He can take on that defensive lineman and score a touchdown. That's going to be where Marcel Reed's head needs to be. He cannot hesitate. He can't double clutch. Double clutching has been a big problem for him this season. Going back to the Mississippi State game, I don't think he threw any interceptions, but he was overthrowing balls. He was overthrowing like easy passes in the middle of the field. But if he's confident and he's in rhythm, he can tear you apart. And I think that the secondary allows too many big plays early. Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver are so tough to cover. I mean, I don't care who you are right now. I respect Texas's cornerback room, so it's no slight against them. But I don't know how. I mean, there was Mario Craver had like 200 plus yards against Notre Dame. He was going against their best corner the entire game. So it was just, and he couldn't handle him. So that type of quickness, and I know Texas fans probably look back and wish they had done a better job recruiting Casey Concepcion because one of my co-hosts here, Cannon Torres, he's one of the better recruiting guys and pays a lot of attention to the transfer portal. He's been wanting him for the 2 years. And I was like, what's funny though, is that I don't think anybody else was talking about him. It was really just A&M. I really thought Texas was going to be in the market for that, but it's the same thing. A&M has missed out on transfer portal players that have done well. So it's just how it is. But I agree with you. This is a coin flip. This is going to be hard, but man, I'm going to be honest. I think you and I are going to have a fun time watching this. I think we're going to have a fun time talking about whatever happens after. I think for A&M fans, and I said this on your show last night, do not trust the selection committee if you lose this game. Like, don't trust them because they've already said enough of, taking Indiana and Ohio State, even if A&M sustains one loss that is, like, as I've heard, meaningless to their CFP hopes, which it is. Like, they're going to be a CFP team. But how high? Are you going to get a quarterfinal bye? Are you going to have to play an early home game and then you're just going to have a tougher matchup in the next round? I don't know. I think that if they don't put together their best effort in this game and show they're one of the best teams in the country, I could easily see them drop in 5 through 8, or probably not lower, but in the 5 through 8. So yeah, it's going to be crazy, but I'm glad we could catch up and really preview this game. I would like to ask you though, who is going to be the wide receiver, the number one guy that Arch is going to target in this game? Because that is going to be interesting. I don't think we touched on that. Will Lee and Des Ricks, obviously A&M's two outside starting corners. Des has been covering the number one guy throughout the season. Will was starting to do that. He's now relegated to the number two guy. Tyreek Chappelle's in the slot. He's somebody I don't worry about him in this game because I think their outside receivers are going to be the ones making the big plays. Do you think it's going to be Ryan Wingo? Do you think that this is potentially a Parker Livingston type game because of maybe the mismatch there?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think it will be Ryan Wingo. Like, I think he'll get the most targets. He kind of has been that guy ever since the Mississippi State game. I think he's had a couple back-to-back, like 150-plus yard games in there, and then he had a pretty good game versus Arkansas, pretty good game versus Georgia, minus the drops. So I do think he'll get the majority of the targets. And then, yeah, it's going to be a coin toss between Emmett Mosley or Parker Livingstone to me. Who else gets the, second and third targets? Yeah. Emmett Mosley is kind of the guy on third down, and then Parker Livingston is kind of the guy going down the field. That's kind of the vibe I get there. So different scenarios call for different wide receivers, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I can see him probably taking. I think they're going to take a couple of deep shots early. To be honest, I'm Sarkisian. I would take a couple of deep shots early, especially if your run game just dies again, because they are susceptible to big plays. As you know, you can always get those holding calls. It's actually very easy to get those pass interference calls now because those guys are always hand fighting, and if the corner's pulling a little bit, they're going to call PI. So it is what it is. But I can see them being pretty aggressive, and I don't blame them. I mean, this is a rivalry game. This is such an important game. You got to do everything in your power, and you got to pull out every type of play you can think of that could be successful in this defense to get the job done. So I'll say this. It's coming to the point where A&M really does need to win out. I do think that if they lose to Texas on Friday night, obviously they don't go to the SEC championship game, so they're just going to be at home waiting to see where they end up in the college football playoff rankings, at the final rankings after championship Saturday. But I really think if Ohio State and Indiana end up finishing strong, one team sustains a loss in the championship game, I don't think they're going to I don't think that's going to hurt either of those programs much, but I do think this will hurt A&M based on what I've seen and based on the comments I've read and covered from the committee over the past 2 weeks. I think they favor Indiana's wins, and I think they favor their schedule for some reason. I think that this narrative that A&M has played the bottom 8 teams in the SEC, which is true, but they didn't know that going into the season. They didn't know LSU was going to be a average team. They didn't know that Arkansas's defense was going to be as bad as it is. They didn't know that Missouri was going to lose their starting quarterback. You just have to play the teams in front of you. So I think it's a kind of a dumb narrative, but at the same time, that's just what it is. So I think the focus obviously is you need to win this game. You need to show that you are the number 3 or higher team in the country, and you have to perform like it on both sides of the ball. And that's going to mean, and we talked about it tonight, that Marcel Reed is going to have his best game probably the best game of his career. And he did that a couple weeks ago against South Carolina. Passed for a career high 439 yards, 3 touchdowns. Had those 2 first half interceptions, but he came back and showed this is why he earned that job in the offseason. This is why this team trusts him so much, and they trust him as a leader as well. I mean, they have strengths on at every position. Like, this is a complete team overall, and it's really hard to ignore that. But at the same time, I agree with Matthew. This is probably the best team. Well, no, probably not the best team. Best defense A&M has faced this season, and you are playing on the road. So it's going to be a challenge. But look, I believe in this team. I've been covering this team all season. I trust them. I trust the coaching staff. One of the reasons Elko received that extension was because of this culture that's been building here. You see it through recruiting. You see it in the transfer portal. You see it in the unity in the locker room. And you saw it completely against South Carolina, being down 27 points, coming all the way back to win that game. That's a culture win, like Mike Uggo said. That we've been building towards this back in the winter. So, this team's, they're ready for the challenge. If they come out with a win, I wouldn't be surprised. If they come out with a loss, we'll be talking about that for the next 2 weeks and really wondering just how far they'll fall in the CFP. But you hope they win this game, and you hope that we don't have to worry about that.